is a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini.
He's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
That's right. We are live with the Hockey Podcast. And my name isn't Kevin Olenek. My name is Sean Holmesmith. And Kevin is not here. He is currently calling hockey play-by-play for the Greater Vancouver Canadians in the tournament this weekend. So he is unavailable for the first time in I think this is the first time Kevin has missed a podcast since the inception.
Yeah.
And so right now it is just myself and Tyler.
Hey, Sean. Good to be back. Sorry I missed out last weekend. It was raining like hell here in Terrace, and work required me to be involved in that. So my apologies for missing out here. But with the start of the regular season upon us here for the NHL, hope to be on a more regular basis every week here and talk some hockey. It's exciting to finally get to the starting line. Yes, the Canucks and Oilers have an exhibition game tonight, but which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a bit. But enough talking about it. Enough consternation over who's going on waivers and this and that and contracts, and we're actually going to be dropping the puck for real. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked that we're going to start getting to watch some hockey that matters. Because even like these exhibition games, like it's a very I watch them in a very different aspect than I watch other games, because it's like, whose line is it anyways? The points are made up and the results don't matter, right? So
right.
So I always watch and try and find the positives. I always watch and try and find who's playing well, especially when who's playing well when you're talking about the roster battles. Because especially with the Canucks, there's a lot of roster battles for the final few spots, both up on forward and on the blue line. So still got one more game to go of that, but come, I guess, for Canucks, it'd be Wednesday. It all starts for real. And yeah, like you said, Tyler, it's exciting. And we don't have to worry about Elias, Pettersson, or Quinn Hughes not being there.
Yeah. Unlike in Ottawa, where they're still waiting to find out whether Brady Tkachuk will be there in time for opening night. But
I feel sorry for Sens fans. They've had to go through so much just crap over the past few years, and now they still have to. They're still waiting for their star player. Who I know I was jokingly saying it for the longest time, but the B stands for better Tkachuk. And I think that everyone's starting to realize that Brady is quite the player, and I really hope that they can get him in the line, signed and in the lineup as quickly as possible, because when he's not playing against your team, he's entertaining to watch. But let's jump right into the Canucks aspect. Tyler, we didn't have you on last week, so we didn't get a chance to hear what your thoughts are on the Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson deals.
Yeah, I think, for all of the flack that the organization and Jim Benning in particular gets over free agent signings, and it's usually justified criticism, although we've talked about how Canadian markets said, they're just paying a premium for free agents to come there. But Jim can't be criticized for overpaying his star young players. I like these contracts. It would have been nice to see longer than 3 years for Elias Pettersson, but it'll keep them hungry. And that's the hope, right? You hand them that big contract for 8 years with a huge cap hit. Yeah, they want to win. Yeah, they're professionals. I just don't think the hunger factor is as strong than it is when you have these shorter contracts. Obviously, the lack of cap space, makes it hard to kind of get the deals done because you got the two players, pushing hard for a good deal when there's only so many dollars available. But really, I mean, the restricted free agents, unless there's going to be an offer sheet, there isn't really much leverage for them. And the organization can say, well, look, we've structured the rest of it. This is what we have to spend. Let's make a deal. And, I think eventually after a few preseason games there and missing training camp, the players kind of reached that tipping point where, let's make a deal. We want to get out there. We want to be ready to go for the first game. And I expect that they will be. So all around good for both the organization and the players.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point in terms of the keeping players hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as like you want to see players tied up long term, I wonder if we're going to see 3 years of absolute just terror for other opponents with Elias Pettersson because he wants to prove that he should have gotten the long term deal, prove that his next contract is going to be over $10 million on the cap hit. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, and he actually deserves it. That's a good problem to have. Like you hope that the organization can plan for that, can figure out how to work around it. But instead of giving them both big money, big long-term contracts, you've got 6 years at Quinn Hughes, and I think after year 2 or 3, that deal's going to look really good. I think I think Quinn Hughes wants to come in this year and show that he's not a defensive liability. I think he's going to have that motivation to do that and prove that by the end of that contract, he will be a bargain. And Patterson's going to want to prove that after year 3 that he's going to be a superstar in this league, one of the players who will be in the running for these top 20 to maybe even top 10 lists of top players in the league every year. That always are a interesting discussion point when at the NHL.com and TSN and all the other athletic and whoever wants to release them releases them. But I'm super excited with those deals. I think it's about as good as you could have hoped under the parameters that they were just negotiating under. I think, the only thing you could quibble over is, as you said, getting maybe a little bit more term on the Pettersson deal, but there wasn't the cap space, and I think you look at where the Canucks are with their top 9 this year. I think I'm excited. I think they're going to score a lot. I think we're going to see an exciting brand of hockey played by the Canucks this year, and let's go. Like, that's where I'm at. Oh, Tyler, you're muted.
Yeah, I had beeping going on behind me. So I'm still concerned about the defense. I agree with the forwards. Should be very exciting. A lot of depth, a lot of options for Travis Green there. Way less dead weight than what we were seeing in the last couple of years, with all due respect to the guys that are gone, Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel, and Jay Beagle. But defensively, like the Oliver Ekman-Larsson's got to work out for the Canucks, or man, that's going to be a constant distraction, surrounding the team throughout the season, and again, just because of contract. But in the preseason, it looks like he's rejuvenated with a change of scenery, and same for Louis Eriksson as well. Maybe that's going to turn out to be a trade that works out for both sides. Just they needed a change, different system, different coach. Last year the Canucks were so brutal defensively, and so as long as they can get the puck out of their own end and get the puck up to those forwards, then things should be fine. I think we're good in goal with Patrick Demko and Jarl Halak. Predicting that the Canucks are going to have a better year than last year. Could it have gotten any worse last year? So we have to remember too, like it should go up. The question is, will it be enough to reach the postseason?
Yeah, the way I look at it is I think they're going to score. I think they've got the bodies on the back end that can move the puck up to them, whether it's Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Quinn Hughes. Don't sleep on Brad Hunt. Whether Jack Rathbone makes the team is going to be interesting as well. But between Brad Hunt and Jack Rathbone, I think that bottom pair is going to have some puck moving ability. It's just, are they going to be able to withstand being be able to get the puck out of their zone and not get hemmed in
Yeah.
as much as they did last year and even in the previous years. If the way I look at it is if the Canucks can have average defense at the very least, I think they can outscore almost anyone in the Pacific Division. With that, because you can run the Lotto line, or you can run the three-headed monster of Pettersson, Horvat, Miller down the middle, and you're starting to see a little bit of some depth on the wings too. I think there's still one spot in the top 9 that I think is up for grabs, but the other 8 spots are pretty much solidified, I think, in turn. And there's going to be exciting players who have the ability to score on all 3 of those top lines in the top 9.
Mm-hmm.
So if they going back to the defense, if they can be average, then I think they're going to be able to outscore it. And I think people are going to be very surprised with how high up in the division that they'll be.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some predictions out there with the Canucks finishing as high as second place in the division. I mean, I don't see that. I think they'll be fighting tooth and nail for one of the wild card spots to get in. But of the California teams, if you're sort of sizing up the competition, I mean, I think LA could be probably pretty strong. Don't see much happening from San Jose or Anaheim. There are a lot of people out there, and I myself included initially when it comes to Seattle, we're thinking, well, they're not going to be like Vegas. Don't expect much from them the first year. But, in the preseason, again, how much does preseason really mean? Well, it doesn't look like they're going to be total pushovers, so let's keep an eye on Seattle. Vegas, while still the favorite, wouldn't surprise me if they stepped back a little bit. And then with the Oilers, I mean, really, it's the same there as it is in Toronto. I mean, the top end is so strong, but as far as taking a step into the playoffs and doing something once they're there, I mean, that's all. I'll believe it when I see it type of situation. So I'm not expecting much out of the Calgary Flames this year. So there's enough teams in there with some question marks where the Canucks have a path into the playoffs here, but you got to get off to a good start. That's what really sunk them last year, was that poor start.
Yeah, that poor start really put them behind the 8 ball. And if they can, they're starting on the road for 6 games, and if they can,
how did that happen? By the way, like. They had a fairly lengthy road trip to start last year. I know last year was an odd situation, but any ideas as to why the Canucks are starting? Their home opener is not till the 26th, I think.
Money. It's to because they don't know. BC's always been a little bit more cautious with the allowing attendance, and right now the Canucks are the only team that are going to have full attendance in the NHL, at least at this point.
As it stands now, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so we're going on a tangent here, but yeah, seeing as the proof of vaccination requirements in BC for certain things, including attending sporting events, there's the requirement for being fully vaccinated by, I believe, October 24th. So I suspect, and my fingers are crossed, that the Canucks will have that approval in place for the first home game on October 26th. Because apparently they're selling tickets as if they're going to have full capacity. So
yeah, I was about to mention that. Yeah, they are selling tickets as they're planning for full attendance. They're hoping for full attendance, and I hope they get it, because I think it's.
I think they will. I mean, even at the political level, I don't think you want to be the premier that says, we're the only Canadian NHL franchise that's not allowing full attendance. So we'll more to come on that. It's one of those things where they don't want to give the approval until they actually are up to the point of having to make the decision. So just hang in there for now, I guess.
Yeah, if they can get some sort of if they can split that those 6 games, go 500, I think that's really good. Anything better than that is bonus. And then then they also have to make hay at home. They got to find. That's the other thing, is you got to be able to feed off the fans, and I think that was again something that was missing. We both know it was something that was missing last year. Oh, yeah. I really think that if they can find a way to have a good start, they're going to be in a really good spot. And I think that's just where I'm at. I'm excited for this season. Last year, I was a little bit more there was a little bit of excitement from coming off of the bubble. but I really didn't know what to expect with such a weird season. And then this year, you've got like the changes that they've made and the depth that they have. I think I know you said that you've seen them as high as second, and you're not quite sure there. I could see it. I honestly could, just because of I think this division's wide open. I don't think Vegas is as good as they have been. They don't have Marc-Andre Fleury. And their center depth I still think is unproven. They traded away Cody Glass. They've brought in Nolan Patrick, but we don't know where he's at in his game. I just think that this division's wide open, and it's for the taking of whoever can get off to a good start.
And a short offseason for Vegas, too. I wonder if that may have a negative impact on the start of their season. Just going back briefly, we talked about the contract length for Elias Pettersson, although, in terms of long-term comfort, franchise player being locked up and committed to, I mean, it wasn't a long deal. However, at the end of the contract, he's still a restricted free agent. So going back to that whole motivation thing, if Elias can keep taking a step here over the next 3 seasons, odds are if he's lighting the world on fire heading into free agency, well, good for him. Then he'll have earned that raise. And, and again, unless there's an offer sheet, the Canucks will be able to keep him beyond the end of his upcoming contract. So that's good there.
And if the Canucks can take a step and at least in the playoffs for all 3 of these upcoming seasons, I think there'll be the drive to stay and finish the job too. So it's not just the success of Elias Pettersson; it's also the success of the Canucks that's going to determine what that next contract looks like for PD.
Yeah, a lot of change in this offseason for the Canucks, and there was quite a bit the previous offseason as well. And I think that change is partly why they got off to such a poor start last year. But there was no preseason last year, and then they had to start without JT Miller due to being in COVID protocol. But the pieces that left the last time, losing Jacob Markstrom and Chris Tanev and Troy Stetcher, I mean, these were really big presences in the locker room. So I think there was I don't know if gut punch is the right phrase here or not, but yes, there was change, and I'm sure they were happy to welcome in certain new players, but it just seemed, in hindsight, it looks like that loss of veteran presence and those characters really sort of took the wind out of the Canucks sails that they were starting to get in the bubble hockey. This year, though, now I'm hopeful that there'll be a lot more of a good vibe going into the start of the season. They had their training camp there in Abbotsford. They have fans out watching it. There's momentum building there. A full camp, of course, minus Quinn and Elias, although they looks like they were put through the pace as well when they were in Michigan, and they've looked good in the preseason so far, just jumping into it. So all of the stars seem to be aligning for the Canucks to have that good feeling going into the start of the season against Edmonton.
Yeah, and then both Pettersson and Hughes looked good on the last game against Edmonton, because we got 3 in a row against our friends from Edmonton, and friend of the show, Graham Moseman, and I get to go back and forth way too much.
Yes, hello, Graham. Looking forward to those discussions.
Oh yeah, but we not only do we have all the excitement on the top 9, but the Canucks did a good job this offseason bringing in depth, bringing in players who were right on the border and it can have that extra hunger to play in the NHL and be good depth pieces down the lineup. We aren't talking about having just prospects or players who aren't exactly overpaid veterans who aren't really doing their job. Like, they're just making fans and media frustrated. We've got players making what they should be making on this team, other than maybe 1 or 2 that were signed before this. But everyone that they signed this offseason, I think it is
Yes.
was signed to a deal that makes sense cap wise and for their spot in the lineup.
Mhm.
And there's players battling for jobs, and it's that's what you need. You need that hunger to push.
Mhm.
And we saw the Canucks unfortunately lose a former second round pick in Jonah Gadjevich to the San Jose Sharks via waivers
Yeah.
because they brought in those players that pushed him off out of a potential roster spot. But also with that, there's the big question on the penalty kill, both on the blue line and on the and up front. Who's going to be on the penalty kill? Because that is going to
Yeah,
be
and I
huge.
don't think Coach Green's got that figured out yet.
No,
We'll see what he tries to do tonight, I guess.
Because we got Justin Dowling, Nick Patan, both. I think they're battling for potential spots, as well as Alex Chason. They brought in on the PTO.
Mhm.
Philip Di Giuseppe came in. I think he's already won a spot in my opinion. I think he's going to be a fourth line player for the Canucks.
Yeah, and he's in the lineup tonight, so that's probably an indication that he's got the inside track for a spot on the opening day roster.
Yeah, and I'm trying to go through the lineup as we're speaking, trying to figure out what the lines could potentially be tonight, because I think that'll show a lot on where Green's head is at in terms of what the lineup could or should look like, because both Patan and Dowling are in the lineup. Di Giuseppe's in the lineup. You don't have Alex Chason's in the lineup, so it's and you got it. Let's get into the forward lines right now to start. I think going with the three-headed monster of Pettersson, Horvat, and Miller down the middle, especially, and then you throw in Dickinson on the fourth line as your fourth line center is a great idea.
Yeah, I like that too. With Sutter out right now, that makes the most sense to me. I like how engaged Miller seems to be as a center. His faceoffs, even when he's not playing center, have always been a strength of his game. My concern, though, is that you don't have like that one line that's really with like the Lotto line. In recent years has been sort of the line, the big offensive threat because of the amount of talent collectively on that one line. So if you're going to now put Miller as a center and spread it out a bit more, that does give you balance. But do you really have that one forward line with that big punch factor to it that's going to take over a game? That's my question.
I think you potentially, there's some potential there, but you can also put back the Lotto line together. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't preclude you from doing that.
And Travis likes to change on the fly. We've seen that.
So like, Dickinson's not dressing tonight, so it looks like they're probably looking at one of they've got Justin Dowling listed as a center, as well as Miller and Pettersson and Horvat. So I think those are your four centers tonight. So Justin Dowling likely the fourth line center tonight. My guess is with Highmore and Giuseppe on his wings. And this is the one last look for Alex Chason, because if he can battle his way in and become a part of that top nine, because like I said earlier, I think there's one spot available in that top nine. I think Podkolzin's played well enough to be given a look to start the season. Mm-hmm. He's starting to show that dog on a bone mentality, driving the net hard. Had he scored, was it versus Seattle?
Yes.
Had he scored that,
he just missed too. He didn't miss by much. Yeah.
It's but you also look at the tonight's lineup: Dickinson and Besser. Besser's a question mark. We've got Dylan speaking up, saying that it's time for he's predicting a 40-goal season from Brock Besser.
I love it. Yeah,
I would love that. It just how healthy is he to start the season? If he can come in and be at least close to top speed to start the season, and it can get off to a quick start, I think we all know he's got that potential, especially with I think he's still probably going to play with Patterson.
Mhm.
I think Patterson and Besser are a potential pairing that you build a line around. You've got Horvat and Pearson, and then you've got Miller and Garland, and then you've got, which would leave Podkolzin, Chason, Hoglander, and Patan and and Patan to sort of fill things out potentially.
Yeah. Well, and for all the disappointments last year, and there's lots of guys that were criticized and discussed. Brock Besser was a bright light for the Canucks. He had a really great season, by his standards. So now that he's heading into a contract year here, the hope for a Canucks fan is that he's going to be very hungry and have a strong season. So 40 goals is a big ask, but I don't think it's unattainable for him. Things go well and he stays healthy and all that.
I look at that again. I look at that top 9. You got Pettersson, Horvat, Besser. I think all have 30 goal potential. Yeah. Garland could I can't remember if Garland's ever hit that yet. I don't think he has, but I think he's got that ability. But he's also he can play down the lineup and be a little bit more of a pest too. And I think that's the other thing. Not only does at least in the top 9 are you going to have very good goal scoring threats on all 3 lines, but you're going to have hard to play against pesky players on all 3 lines as well.
Mm-hmm. I just want to go back to Podkolzin for a second here. I mean, he's playing tonight. Big one for him. I mean, the coach has been out in the media saying both he and Jack Rathbone haven't made the team yet. I mean, I think we can all conclude Rathbone is on the team, but for Podkolzin, he needs to have a good one tonight. If he has a really poor performance tonight in terms of details without the puck, that's not going to help with Travis Green. Doesn't need to score necessarily, but if he's in the right spot and he's doing the little things right, then I think he'll solidify his spot for opening night. We'll have to see. Can he actually stay with the team the whole season? There's no sure thing there. But I think for me, Podkolzin's like last year's Hoglander, right? They want to implement that next younger player up front and some youthful energy, and hopefully he can keep progressing and not get in the coach's doghouse, because for as great a coach as Travis Green is, man, if you get in that doghouse, it's pretty hard getting out of it. And just to transition to defense here, I mean, Olli Juolevi, I mean, it seems like he's in that spot now, and not playing tonight from what I gather. So what do you think, Sean? I mean, is this the end for him, or
for Juolevi?
Yeah,
I think it is. I think Brad Hunt's passed him on the depth chart. Jack Rathbone certainly has. But going back to Podkolzin, I like his details. I like how he plays. He's very focused on positioning and stick position and all that. Like every time I've been able to like sort of key in on him during a shift and in the defensive zone, I feel he's making the right decisions in terms of being able to just take care of those details and be I think he's going to be he's going to become a coach's favorite very quickly in this league because of that. If anything, I want to see him be a little more aggressive tonight, if anything, going forwards, because I like his I like what he's I like I said, I like his details. I just think he needs to get a little more confidence, because I think he's a little gun shy about how he was kind of treated in Russia. I think he couldn't do. I don't think I wonder if he felt he couldn't do anything right there. So I think if he can get some confidence and maybe even get some luck with some of his passes getting capitalized on, and maybe a couple plays get where he drives the net, creating some chaos, creates a goal. That'll do wonders for him in terms of creating that confidence that I think he needs to take that next step and become a full-time NHLer. He's right on the edge, I think, right now. I think he's done enough to stay in that top 9 to at least start the season.
Yeah.
But whether or not he stays there remains to be seen at this point. All that being said, he's still only 19, 20 years old. If he's going up and down between Abbotsford and Vancouver this year, and then takes that next step next year, we're the Canucks are still in a really good spot with him.
Mm-hmm. Got some more comments here, I see.
Yeah, the Canucks did send down Will Lockwood today, so he's not making the team out of camp, but he will be back up with this team at some point this season. His tenacity, his motor, his ability to just get in the face of opponents, and I think he's got some penalty kill potential there, is going to make it real hard for Travis Green and Jim Benning to keep him down in Abbotsford this season. He may start. He looks like he's starting the season there, but I don't think he's going to end there.
Mm-hmm. And then in regards to we got Ian McKinnon comment here about Gadjevich. I'm assuming this has to do with Levy. I mean, if he's waived, I don't see a team claiming him, so I don't think there's much concern there. Yeah, Gadjevich, I don't know if the Canucks tried to make a trade there, but a player with some more potential, and San Jose made a claim, and good for Jonah. He gets a chance now potentially with another team to actually play in the NHL right away. So
yeah, teams are smart enough to know that when who's waiver eligible and who isn't for younger players, they aren't going to, especially if you're a team like San Jose where you're farther down farther higher up in the waiver priority list, that they're not going to give up any assets for a player like that when they know he's likely going to be waived. But with Levy, I'm not sure there'd be anyone who's going to be who will pick him up at this point. I think he is what he is. He's a 6, 7, 8 defenseman in the NHL at this point, and it's unfortunate. But that's where he's at. Jack Rathbone, I think, has passed him. I would say Brad Hunt's passed him in the depth chart. The only reason I think that he still has a chance is his penalty kill abilities. Yeah. Both Hunt and Rathbone haven't been given that opportunity. Haven't really shown that they can do that yet. But tonight is a big opportunity for Jack Rathbone, because they're going with Hughes, OEL, and Rathbone on the left side, Poolman, Myers, and Shen on the right side tonight. So unless you're going to play Poolman, Myers, and Shen and OEL as your main penalty killers, and you're going to have 2 righties on there, which they could do, there's an opportunity for them to at least try Jack Rathbone and potentially Quinn Hughes on the penalty kill, and to get, because they're going to need that. They're going to need that penalty kill depth, because you're not. What happens if one of those 4 take a penalty? You're going to have to be able to rely and feel comfortable playing every defenseman on the penalty kill.
That's right.
So it's a big opportunity for Jack Rathbone, because I think that I hope that this is the 6th that they go into Wednesday's game against the Oilers with. I think that's the 6 that have deserved it at this point. But I think Jim Benning needs to find a way to at least add one more depth piece who can play the right side going into as quickly as possible. Maybe they can bring back Bulldog Alex Biega.
Yes, he just went on waivers today, I believe, with the Leafs.
Let's rescue him. Let's rescue him from the Leafs organization.
yeah. I not to get into Travis Hamonic for too long here. Obviously, not with the club, hasn't opted out, but no real clear timeline as to when he might be playing. But my feeling is it could be quite a while, and even if he decides to get back into it, how long is it going to take for him to be in game shape? So yeah, looking at something there to bolster the defense, I think would be kind of like the one item still on the to-do list here prior to the start of the season.
Yeah, I thought the Canucks did well getting the depth pieces, but losing the uncertainty with Hominick, and then losing Brady Keeper to what sounds like a really, really, really unfortunately bad injury. I think they need to find a way to at least grab one more depth piece on the right side to go, because Luke Shen has been all right, but his foot speed's not quite what you're looking for, and I don't think he's a true everyday NHLer at this point.
No.
So I think they need to find maybe Madison Bowie can step up, because I think he's still potentially an option, a depth option there. But yeah, I think they need to find a way to either make a waiver claim or use some, maybe an Ola Ulevi or a forward to swap with another team to get another right side defenseman to go into this season.
Absolutely.
All right, so if Devin was here, we'd I think we'd hop into the Flames stuff.
Yeah,
but,
and I have to say, I you gave me the list here. I'm not sure I'm up to speed enough on some of those Flames topics there. Other than expectations, I kind of hit on that a little bit earlier. I have to ask a Flames fan, did the Flames do enough in the offseason to give you any confidence that they are going to improve? I mean, they had a really terrible season last year as well, like the Canucks did. I'm not convinced there. And then with goaltending too, I mean, we know from when he was in Vancouver, Jacob Markstrom wants to play every day. And even if he's banged up, he wants to keep playing. But, we've seen now on a few occasions with him that if you overwork the guy, he might miss quite a bit of time. And, that'll be something to watch there as well. And, does Vladar, how do you say his name?
Vladar, I believe.
Vladar. Yeah. Is he going to be able to, step in and provide quality goaltending for the Flames when Markstrom is either not able to play or given the night off? So that'll be something to see. I'm expecting a very motivated Johnny Gaudreau this year, and if you get something going there, then I think the rest of the team will follow. As Johnny goes, I think the rest of them go there in Calgary.
Yeah, and then the acquisition of Blake Coleman, who is actually suspended for their first regular season game. Did you see that hit there, Tyler?
I did, yeah. I mean, in the preseason, there's really not much room for the league to be tolerant about reckless play like that. So, the message has been sent, and unfortunately for Blake, he's gonna lose some pay for one game there at the start of the season.
Yeah, when I saw that, with one game, the Flames had one preseason game to go. I figured that they would give him basically two, one preseason, one regular season, because you can't just suspend him for one, and a fine's definitely not good enough. I think, yeah, but I agree with you, Tyler. I think that the two major issues, I think there's three major issues with the Flames. Have they done enough up front to be able to? Are they going to have the ability to score enough in this division? You got going up against the McDavid and Draisaitl-led Oilers. You got the Canucks with Patterson, Horvat, Besser, Miller. You've got Vegas. I think we talked about them not necessarily being strong up the middle, but they've got depth, and I think they can still score. They've still got William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone. And then can the Flames score enough to be able to and is their defense going to be good enough too? Because
well, and then of course a big loss there with Giordano being picked up in the Seattle expansion, and we've on this show had our criticisms of whether Gio needs to be moved on from, and his leadership, and the players following and stuff. Well, he's not there anymore, so we'll see. Either there will be kind of a new chemistry that takes over there and it works, or they're going to feel that void. I suspect they're going to feel the void, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just look at that blue line, and Hanifin and Tanev were fantastic for the Flames last year as a pair. Rasmus Andersson, I still think, is not quite where he needs to be. for the Flames, and maybe he can make that step this year. But I still want to see. He still needs to prove that for me. And then after that, you've got Zadorov and Goodbranson. Are they fast enough in today's NHL? That's a big question. Can Yusuf Alamaki take that step that everyone expected last year? Because if he can take that step, that's going to be huge. Because if he doesn't, then you're just looking at I would say 3 top 4 defensemen, and then you've got a bunch of bottom pair guys who just aren't good enough. Can Oliver Shillington work his way into this lineup? Because that's been a big talk here in Calgary, that he's found a way to work his way into the conversation. Because and this ties into the goaltending. You do not want to overwork Markstrom. We've seen it. We saw it as Canucks fans. We saw it last year as well in his first year as a Flame. He gets injured. If you play him too much, he gets injured. So you're going to have to find a way to relieve some of his workload, whether it's in game with being a little bit better with shot suppression, or you're going to have to hope that Daniel Vidar is able to take away starts from Markstrom because he's playing well. So I think they've got the bodies up front if they all click to be good. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I think, as you said, I think we are going to see a motivated Gaudreau. I think we are going to see a motivated Matthew Tkachuk. I think the big wild card is going to be what Sean Monahan do they get.
Yeah.
If they get Sean Monahan from 2-3 years ago, I think it's going to be, they're going to be right in the dogfight with the with Vegas, Vancouver, and Edmonton. If they don't, and they get the Sean Monahan from the past year and a half, season and a half, it's going to be tough because you're not going to have the depth. And I don't know if they've got a line that you can rely on to be a bona fide number one line that is going to scare teams with their offensive ability.
Another player that I think is key up front for Calgary is Andrew Mangiapane. I mean, he had the great World Championship there for Team Canada, and he's headed into restricted free agency after this season. And he's been progressing. He's been building here. So if he can take another step forward, that'll certainly ease some concerns there in Calgary as well.
Yeah. So I think I'm expecting the Flames to be, if everything goes well, they said they're going to be right in the dogfight with the top 4 teams in this division. If that blue line isn't what I think Treliving and Sutter are expecting, that's gonna spell trouble. If they can't find the right chemistry up front, that's gonna spell trouble. So.
And just sort of one last thing on the Flames that I'm curious to see is, Daryl Sutter and this group, a younger team, older school coach, is that going to last? Is his message going to continue to be heard? I think initially last year, you got that bump from a new coach, but it seemed to wear off pretty quick. I mean, it's pretty silly by the end when the playoffs had started and the Canucks and Flames were still playing regular season games. I mean, they weren't even out there for the full warm-up. I mean, both teams were just, as an aside here, just kind of went through the motions, finished it off. But I think it was a bit of a window into the guys checking out a little bit. And, with the Canucks, had they checked out, well, okay, there's some things I can understand there. Particularly around their COVID outbreak and how they really had no shot at the playoffs once that was over with. Coach was a lame duck coach going into the off season, a lot of uncertainty there. But with the Flames, I mean, you've changed coaches and you made a bunch of moves in the off season to get better, and it just fizzled the way that it did. That's something that I'm curious to see. As I've said, is Daryl Sutter gonna have the ear of this group here for very long?
And I think I'll bring up the point that I think Kevin's brought up a bunch of times. I don't think Daryl Sutter. He doesn't think that Daryl Sutter is high on a lot of these younger players, as like the fan base and even Brad Treliving and the organization was beforehand. Whether it was Valimaki, whether it was Dubé, whether it was even Mangiapane, or even some of the younger players who aren't even on the team. I think that's going to be part of it too, because I think they do need some youth. I think they need someone to step up younger to start pushing up the lineup. I think they were really hoping for Connor Zary to do that, but he got injured. So I don't know what to. I'm really not sure what to expect from him. Do they just send him back to Kamloops, or have they done that? I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's just when you look at the Flames, I think there's too many questions going into the season to really have a good feeling on where they're gonna land. And we've talked about it on this podcast a few times, and almost nonstop. Honestly, it's just like what is going on in that room. And you got rid of Mark Giordano. Who's going to step up and be the leader of this team this season?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the two main guys you probably should expect to see take on a bigger hold of the locker room and all those leadership types of things would be Matthew Tkachuk and Chris Tanev. Tanev in particular with his experience sort of as a veteran and leader and quote unquote dad when he was with the Canucks. So now that Tanev's had a full year there and a little, he's gotten integrated now. Could see that. But I think the path forward for the Flames to have success is Tkachuk driving the bus and letting him be himself. Yes, I know that's frustrating for opposing fans and opposing teams, but when Matthew Tkachuk is playing that feisty, pesky, irritating type game, that's when he's at his best, and the Flames need that. So I don't think that should be discouraged there, and I don't think Daryl will be discouraging that.
Oh no, I think Daryl's going to want him to be that way because that is Daryl Sutter hockey.
Yeah.
And if you have a motivated Matthew Tkachuk who's going to be pushing the limits, that's really going to help drive that Flames team. But I think that is again, I said there's three major questions. I think that's a fourth. Who's gonna emerge as the leader for this team? Because I feel like there was a bit of a sort of maybe a split or a rift or just a miscommunication in that dressing room for the past few years.
And it's all scuttlebutt that kind of floats in the media and the fans talk about, but I don't think there's any denying that last year the incident with him and Jake Muzzin and then what came after that, I don't think there's any question that Matthew Tkachuk wasn't the same player after that. Didn't look like his usual irritating presence that we were used to. And so why is that? Well, I think it's a pretty safe conclusion. He was told to knock it off. And I don't think that was a good thing for him or the Flames.
No, it wasn't. And I think that we talked about the blue line being the big loss in Mark Giordano, but I think it long term or even 2-3 years from now, I think that's a good moving on from Giordano and letting some of these younger players maybe step up and become a bit more vocal and a bit more of a bigger role in that locker room is going to be important. That being said, we saw what happened when the Canucks lost big leaders in their room last year. I wonder if we see a little bit of that potentially this year with the Flames in terms of a slow start, not quite meshing the way we think they could. I wonder if that might happen. So, and then let's go to we touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the podcast with Brady Tkachuk still unsigned. How do you think this goes on much longer, or is this going to become another William Nylander situation?
I'm afraid that it's going to be that. Right. I mean, Brady is a Tkachuk, and so they've got Keith there advising them, and and we've talked about it. I mean, Brady's a huge, if not the biggest piece for the Ottawa Senators, and the feeling I get is that they're gonna hold firm on their position there to get a good contract. So this is a guy that's been talked about as the next captain potentially of the Senators, and so if you're the Kachuk camp, you're gonna cave until you have to. I don't know. We're not at the start of the regular season yet. Tomorrow we could turn around and hear about a deal, but if I had to take a guess at it, I think he will not be playing to start the season.
I think this is all on Ottawa to make it happen. I think Kachuk, from what I've gathered by the scuttlebutt and everything that I've read, we've had friends of the show this Senzauer tweeting all hours of the day about this. I think Dorian and the Sens are trying to lock him up fully long term, the full 8 years, but aren't willing to give him the cash to do that. Mm-hmm. They're not willing to pay him over $8-9 million over 8 years to do that. And Kachuk's like, okay, if you're not going to do that, then let's just do a bridge deal. And I think that seems to be the impasse right now. That's just how I'm reading the situation. Mm-hmm. And if I'm Dorian, I'm like, okay, fine, let's just do a bridge deal. Prove to me that you deserve that. I think I really like how you put it, keeping that hunger in these players.
Yeah. And I don't know where that disappeared. Like we went through this phase where suddenly like the players have all the control. Like, how did it become like that? It looks like, given that the cap is flat, so that's helping sort of put a limit on these mega deals for young stars. But it looks like organizations are trying now to rein that back in.
You don't want to have a situation like it was in Edmonton for years. After McDavid and Draisaitl signed their deals, you had Taylor Hall on a long-term deal. You had Nugent Hopkins on a long-term deal. Like it felt like you don't want it to become a country club. So maybe you do have to maybe take it these shorter-term deals that may not make the most sense cap-wise long-term, may not make the most sense within when you're dealing just by numbers and capologists and all that. But hockey's more than that. Having that, keeping these players hungry and keeping these players driven to prove themselves, I think is huge. And I think you need to.
Yeah, and the thing with the young stars is whether they're a captain or an alternate captain or not, when you're one of the stronger players on the team and looked at as a franchise player, all your work ethic and everything you do off the ice and in practice and all that has a very meaningful trickle down effect to the rest of the team. And so if these are guys that are paid huge contracts, at some level, you don't want them feeling too comfortable. And I think that if you're not, you're paying them, a good raise, and you're like, for example, now, I mean, Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson are I believe the top 2 AAVs on the Canucks roster. Fine. I mean, they are the star players, right? But it's still not more than, I think in Hughes' case, 9.6% of the Canucks cap space. And you look at some other teams and they're into the double digits, and you get that balance. And I think we're not in the dressing room to really know this, but I wouldn't surprise me that, there's good sort of respect amongst the guys when you feel like everybody's pulling their weight. So hopefully that pans out for the Canucks.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than I think than we realize at times in terms of trying to find that right balance within paying a player, getting them locked up. So, and the Sens also have some younger players coming up that are going to want big deals as well. It's not just about Brady. They've got him this year to sign, but next year they've got Josh Norris needs a new contract, and he's played really well for them. And then you've got And then the season after that, you're going to have, let's see here, Tim Stützle and Shane Pinto that they're going to need new contracts. Like they can't just give all the money to Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Especially if it's long term. They got to find a way, and they got to find that right balance. And like I said, I hope they find a way to get it done. The NHL is better with Brady Tkachuk playing than it is without him playing. And
also for people like us out west, the watching the Atlantic Division will certainly be more compelling if the Ottawa Senators are making noise in that division. They need Brady to be there.
Yeah, because that division might be the toughest division in the NHL this year.
Yeah,
where you've got both Florida teams, both the Panthers and the Lightning are really good. Mm-hmm. Toronto's still going to be good. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year, but they're still going to be good. Boston still isn't a slouch. Montreal went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and yeah, they're out without Carey Price and Shea Weber, but like Jake Allen's no slouch in that, and they still have Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield to drive the offense. So it's I look at that division, and then if Ottawa can be the pesky Sens that they were last year, and no Eric Francis, they aren't the free square on the bingo card. They're gonna throw a wrench into those teams, and I think I'm all here for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely need Brady for that to happen. And then we got.
Do you want to just segue into Carey Price here, seeing as you brought him up? Yeah, I mean, quick comment on Carey Price. I mean, there's a lot of people that look up to Carey Price across Canada, particularly in the Indigenous communities out there. So, Carey, we wish you well. I have to say, I'm on one hand a little bit surprised, but then again, when you think about it some more, and whatever issues he has weighing on him, I mean, you look at the last little while here, very short off season, probably grinding through most of the playoffs, hurt, come up short, very deflating, gut punch to get to the finals and not win. Some players never get another chance at it, so he's got that weighing on him. Then he was exposed in the Seattle expansion, and then in his personal life, we don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of weight on this guy's shoulders, and there's the Olympics looming, and probably Team Canada expecting him to be there and do well, and so maybe the guy's reached a bit of a breaking point there where he needs some help. So
yeah,
good for him for asking it, and then perhaps making it easier for others that are having some challenges dealing with the pressure of being a star professional athlete to go and seek some help too if they're feeling overwhelmed by everything that they're dealing with.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing about the Players Assistance Program, that it's a very all-encompassing program that helps players is there to help players with everything from that encompasses mental health, whether that is anxiety, depression, addiction, and anything else that they're struggling with. It's there to help them, and I think we're starting to see. He saw what Jonathan Drouin went through last year. I'm sure he's been in contact with Robin Lehner as well, someone who's had issues with everything like that. Has been very vocal about it as well. I think he deserves to be given this opportunity to just take the step back and take not be pressured to tell us what the actual issue is. I just want him to be happy, healthy, and ready to go forward with whatever the future holds for him. That's all I want for Carey Price. And as someone who has dealt with major anxiety issues in my past, and even going through right now, it's you don't having people try and speculate and try and probe doesn't help. Just take a step back, Carey, and just figure out how you can go forwards, and whatever that forwards looks like for you in the future. And I'll support you, and I know everyone on this podcast will support him in that. So
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll see him back before not too long, and see him wearing a Canadian uniform in Beijing.
Yeah. So, and then I want to do that just to quickly segue into I've been listening to a lot of really, really interesting and enlightening conversations about the stresses of being a professional athlete, especially when it comes to specifically an NHL player and a hockey player, the travel, the lack of the struggles with sleep and everything like that. And I hope that starts a good rational discussion where we can maybe come up with some new, better ideas on how to get the best out of the players without burning them out. Because I think that might be part of the issue, is that the travel schedules are very intense.
Yeah.
And the stress is very intense, and it's time to start to rethink how to approach scheduling a season, how to approach scheduling practices and everything like that. So, I just want to put this out there. I'm not playing any sports right now, but I have played it in the past where, yeah, especially for adult sports, most of the time the times are the start times and end times are late at night.
Yep.
And by the time you get home, the adrenaline's still going.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to get to sleep.
And it is. And then there's a trickle down effect on that. I mean, if you have a lot of responsibility in your day job, now you're grinding through that. Maybe that gets more difficult, and then it kind of goes from there. Like as we get older, that gets even more difficult. Yeah, definitely.
It is. And I think it's something we need to be a little more open to having a discussion with, in terms of, okay, this isn't working, let's try something else. And that doesn't mean yell and scream for change. That means having an open mind to trying to have a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and then we're not saying let's just be completely sympathetic. Don't ever criticize players that are making millions of dollars playing sports here, but got to try to remember, if they're in a bit of a funk and struggling, they're human beings that are dealing with a lot of challenges that we don't ever hear about. So you should try to keep that in mind when you're getting on a player on Twitter, for example. Just pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, these guys, they got a lot of demands on them that they're trying to balance, both in their family life and, of course, professionally playing sports.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Olympics, and we had the top teams announcing 3 players that are going to be going to Beijing this upcoming February. All things going well, and the NHL does go, because they're still not quite 100% that they're going to go, but hopefully they do. Was there any surprises for you there, Tyler, on who got announced and who didn't?
I mean, for Canada, McDavid and Crosby were obvious ones. Alex Pietrangelo, I maybe not so much obvious there, but those are 3 great names to hear to start off. The unveiling of the roster, and you got a defenseman mixed in there. Not really any big surprises for me, though, Sean. I'm just trying to pull up the list of all of them here, though. I'm not finding that.
That is true. It is. They're all over the place. So it was Austin Matthews, Seth Jones, and who am I missing on the States?
Can't remember. This is really poor podcasting here right now. Yeah. I thought I saw it somewhere on the Twitter here not too long ago, where it had like a bunch of the countries all in a graphic or something, but I'm having trouble finding that one now.
Yeah, but I think the big one there would be Seth Jones. I think there's be Patty Kane.
There you go.
Yeah, that was thanks, Dylan. Yes, Patrick Kane. Yeah, you can't have a U.S. hockey team without Patrick Kane. But so yeah, all right. So it's Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Alex Pietrangelo for Canada, Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, Seth Jones for the States. Germany had Leon Draisaitl, Moritz Seider, and Philip Grubauer. The ROC, this is Kucherov, Ovechkin, and Vasilevsky.
There you go.
No surprises there. Czech Republic, Andre Palat, Jakub Voracek, who is a Columbus Blue Jacket, just so everyone remembers.
Yes.
He's not a Philadelphia Flyer anymore. And David Pasternak.
Mhm.
Switzerland went with Nico Hischier, Timo Meyer, and Roman Josi. Denmark went with Oliver Bjorkstrand, Nikolai Ehlers, and Alexander True. Finland, Barkov, Rantanen, Sebastian Aho. No surprise there.
Yeah.
Sweden went with Landeskog, Zibanejad, and Hedman. I think they went with the vets there.
Yep.
Slovakia, Andre Sekera, Eric Chernak, and Yaroslav Halak. Oh, Slovakia! I hope you're pesky and can do something. But when you look at the star power of everyone else,
Yeah, and then
poor
China here. Poor
TBD.
China here has no chance in hell in this tournament.
And then Latvia went with Rudolf Balcers, Zegnis Girgensons,
Oh, there
and
you go.
Christian Rubens. Again, be pesky, Latvia. Where's your hopefully
They
can...
are that thorn in the side for
Yeah.
everyone in international hockey tournaments. Just very quickly on China, I know that there was some question as to whether they would be allowed to be part of this tournament, but geez, I mean, let's hope it doesn't get too far out of hand here. I mean, their group is Canada, USA, and Germany, along with China, and I mean, Germany's no slouch now either in Olympic hockey, and I mean, you know, like playing Canada, US, is it going to be like 21-1 or something? Like it's, you know, like it's like probably not, but that's, I mean, I hope that they can do something here between now and the Beijing Olympics to pull in a few more players with some professional hockey experience to put together a reasonably competitive team for what you can expect out of China, because otherwise it's going to, I mean, for me, you know, diminish the Olympic preliminary round fairly significantly when you've got those two games there against Canada and the US that are you know, they're over before they start, right? It's not an ideal situation.
No, it's not, but it is what it is. Remember, I think Italy was put in a tough position during the Turin Olympics in a very similar spot. But I think we'll see some like expats and players like that are going to be playing for China, who probably have either some sort of Chinese descent or something like that. So
yeah, that's what I mean. You gotta identify those players and to get them to answer the call and get them there.
All right, and then I think the last thing we'll touch on here, Alex Barkov. Sasha Barkov signed a new contract this past week. He's got one more year left on one steal of a deal of a contract that he was on at $5.9 million cap hit, but he's almost doubling it with going to a $10 million cap hit on an 8-year deal starting next season.
Yeah, and I'm reading from Pierre LeBrun here. $72 million in signing bonuses. Like I like this, the whole signing bonus system doesn't, you know, to me doesn't make any sense here at all. But as far as an AAV, that's kind of how I measure, you know, whether players are overpaid or not. And I don't watch Florida enough to have a solid handle on this. But I mean, he is one of their franchise players, so $10 million a year is not outrageous. But now, you know, now comes the expectation of delivering on that contract and getting Florida not only to the playoffs, but you know, to advance in the playoffs. And he's the key guy there to making that happen.
Yeah, his annual yearly salary that he gets paid throughout the season is $1 million on every year of that contract. Everything else signing bonuses.
Yeah.
So I don't know when he gets that.
Why do we
but-
even call them signing bonuses? It's just part of your compensation. I mean, I don't know. Just as an aside there, that just is silliness for me. But.
Yeah, he gets 11 million for the first 3 years, 10.6. That's just signing bonuses. Like it's crazy. So good for him. I think a lot of people have called him the most underrated player in the NHL for a few years. I think he is definitely, if he was playing in any other bigger market. And look at that, Ian McKinnon coming in hot with exactly.
There you go.
Most underrated player in the league.
Mm-hmm. And that is because of where he plays for sure.
Yeah. If he was playing in Chicago, Boston, New York, in Canada, Philly, one of those bigger markets, he'd be a superstar. Mm-hmm. He'd be marketed a lot more. So I think that's part of it too. I think he doesn't get the marketing opportunities that other players do because he plays out of down in Florida with the Panthers. So I'm expecting the Panthers to be a very, very tough team this year to beat. And I think they're going to be pushing Tampa for the division this year.
Yeah, just looking at his stats here, 58 points in 50 games last season, plus 12. And in the playoffs, 7 points in 6 games there in that series against Tampa Bay. So, I mean, he's delivering the goods.
So, and I guess I think we'll leave it here for now. I think we touched on basically everything. And unfortunately, Devin was called away to work and couldn't join in the Beards
I know,
cast.
and Devin, I feel your pain because this was me last weekend, and if you're listening, Devin, I miss you. We have not been on the same show together for a while, and look at the flow. It's getting very long. You would have been very impressed to see it. Just saying.
We were really hoping to have 3 beards and 1 head of hair on this podcast,
yes.
but it's we're just 2 beards and still only 1 head of hair. But
right on.
We've got some exciting things coming up. I think I can do a little bit of a tease going forwards. We are working with the Pig and Duke this season with their Pig and Puck Club. So we'll get you some more details on that for our Calgary viewers and listeners. We are going to be working with them, and there's going to be some prizes involved. So that's a bit of a tease there. We've got some plans to do some post-game stuff throughout the year. And I know Kevin's excited to do that. So, but we'll leave that there. We'll leave it here. Please give us a follow on Twitter. It is podcast_hockey. Please give this video a like and give us a subscribe on YouTube, the Hockey Podcast. And we are also on Facebook at the Hockey Podcast. Give Devin a follow. He'll give you all the the Great Dane content, especially when he gets stuck in an elevator.
That's another one. Yeah, we'll let him tell that story.
Yeah, we'll let him tell that story when he's on next. But give him a follow at Gordhouse09, Schneids SCHNEIDZ on Twitter. Kevin is KEVOLE. I am Beardy Canuck 03.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE. Hey, Sean, you kept it between the lines, the yellow line, the white line. We stayed out of the ditch. We made good time here. So I just want to say good job on taking the hosting reins here.
We didn't burn it down, Kevin. So we managed to make it.
No.
Make
Our
it
goal
to
was
the
to
end.
not destroy the show. I think we succeeded there. We didn't wreck the show.
But we will. I hope we'll have a full house next week. Yeah. We'll have 3-4 days of hockey to talk about. Yes. A few Canucks games to talk about. A few Flames games to talk about. So that'll be awesome. And we will see you then. And we will talk to you later. Bye for now.